Hello guys, welcome back to my kitchen. Today I'm making light and airy vanilla profiteroles, also known as cream puffs, that melt in your mouth. You can fill this with anything you like, but I will show you my favorite, a creamy custard with a rich chocolate glaze. So let's get started. First, I'm adding 50 milliliters of water and 50 milliliters of milk into a pot over medium heat. Next, I'll add a teaspoon of sugar, half a teaspoon of salt, 40 grams of unsalted butter, and a teaspoon of vanilla. I'm stirring it all together until the butter melts and everything is smoothly combined. Now I'm adding 60 grams of flour, stirring quickly until it forms a thick dough that pulls away from the sides of the pot. I keep it on medium heat for 2 minutes to evaporate all the excess liquid. Then I take it off the heat and transfer it to a bowl to cool down quickly. Once the dough has cooled slightly, I take 2 eggs and beat them well in a separate bowl. Then I add half of the beaten eggs to the dough and mix thoroughly until it's well incorporated. Next, I add the remaining half of the beaten eggs and continue mixing until the dough is smooth, glossy, and has a soft, pipeable consistency. When you lift the spoon, the dough should slowly fall back into the bowl, forming a thick ribbon. Now transfer the dough into a piping bag fitted with a large circular tip. Gently scoop the dough into the bag, pushing it down to remove any air pockets. You can use the dough scrubber to help push the dough down into the bag and ensure it's packed evenly. Take a baking sheet and flip it upside down. Place a small bit of the dough on each corner of the sheet and press a piece of parchment paper on top. This will help the parchment stick in place while you pipe the dough. Next, pipe the dough onto the parchment paper in even circles, leaving some space between each one to allow for expansion during baking. You can make them in different sizes depending on your preference. I like to make tiny ones, but feel free to choose the size you prefer. After piping, lightly wet your finger with water and gently press down any tails or peaks on the dough to smooth them out. This will help give the pastries an even rounded shape as they bake. Preheat your oven to 390 degrees Fahrenheit. Place the baking sheet in your oven and bake for 10 minutes. Remember, do not open the door during baking. Then reduce the temperature to 375 degrees Fahrenheit and bake for another 10 minutes. Finally, lower the temperature to 330 degrees Fahrenheit and bake for an additional 10 minutes. Make sure they are golden brown and have developed a crust to prevent them from collapsing. Once baking is complete, turn off the oven and slightly open the door. Let the pastries stay in the oven for 10 minutes to cool down gradually. Then remove them from the oven. Your puffs should sound hollow when you tap them and be empty on the inside. Now place the puffs on the wire rack to cool completely. When they are cooled, it's time to fill them. You can choose your oven filling, but I'll show you how to make my favorite vanilla custard. For the vanilla custard, start by pouring 260 milliliters of milk into a saucepan. Add 1 teaspoon of vanilla and a pinch of salt. Warm it over medium heat, but do not let it come to a boil. In a separate bowl, whisk together 2 egg yolks, 60 grams of sugar, 2 tablespoons of flour, and 2 tablespoons of cornstarch. Mix until everything is well combined. Now slowly pour the warm milk into the egg mixture, whisking constantly to avoid any lumps. Once it's fully mixed, pour the mixture back into the saucepan. Cook this over medium heat, stirring continuously until it thickens into a creamy custard. This will take a few minutes, so be patient. When the custard is nice and thick, remove it from the heat and add 45 grams of butter. Stir until the butter is fully melted and the custard is smooth. Let the custard cool before using it to fill your puffs. Pour it into a bowl and cover it with plastic wrap, pressing the wrap directly onto the surface of the custard to prevent the skin from forming. Then place it in the fridge to cool down completely. Once the custard has completely cooled, transfer it to a piping bag with a small round tip. Gently poke a small hole into the bottom or side of each puff and fill them with the custard. Now it's time to make the chocolate glaze. Take 40 grams of semi-sweet chocolate and pour 35 milliliters of hot heavy cream over it. Add a half teaspoon of butter and stir until the mixture is smooth and glossy. If the chocolate isn't fully melted, place the bowl in the microwave and heat in 10-second bursts, stirring between each balls until smooth and fully melted. Now take your filled puffs and dip the tops into the glaze. Let any excess drip off before placing them on a wire rack or parchment paper to set. Repeat the process with the rest of the puffs. And there you have it, perfectly golden cream puffs with a smooth vanilla custard filling topped with a rich chocolate glaze. These treats are as delicious as they are beautiful. I hope you enjoy making them with me. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share if you want more tasty recipes. Thanks for watching and enjoy your homemade cream puffs.